And I will start with prayers, Mangalacharan prayers. So we'll sing prayer to spiritual teachers. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Nama. We'll sing prayer to Krishna. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste. Now prayer to all devotees. Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhu bhaivacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo nama. Prayer to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Prayer to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. And then Mahamantra. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. All right. I'll share my screen. Yeah. Everyone see my screen?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes. Okay. Before I start, I would like to thank Gaurgama Prabhu for giving me this opportunity to speak on this topic. Although I don't feel I'm qualified enough, but I feel empowered to present what I understand and repeat what I learned from all my spiritual teachers and devotees who have shaped me in the last few months. Also, I would like to ask for forgiveness ahead of time if I speak anything out of Guru Parampara, and seek blessing from everyone present here, and humbly request everyone to participate with all their heart. So this is not a class and I'm not a professor. I'm just mimicking from what I heard. So please kindly participate as much as you can. All right. I wanted to start with singing a bit of glory of Gita, because we have often did Bhagavatam here. So I wanted to sing Gita Mahatmya, glories of Gita Mahatmya first. Is my screen moving? Because I see your screen sharing is paused. That's why.
It's fine, Prabhu. Yeah.
Okay. So does Mataji want to read Prabhu Sanskrit verse, you said?
Yes. Whichever verse from the Bhagavad Gita you want her to read, she can read.
Okay. And from Gita Mahatmya? No. Okay. I can do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Can you see the verse right now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, Ekam Shastram Devki Putra Gitam, Eko Devo Devki Putra Eva, Eko Mantras Tasya Namani Yani, Karmapi Ekam Tasya Devasya Seva. So this is from Gita Mahatmya. It says Ekam Shastram. So let there be just one scripture, Devki Putra Gitam, Gita. Let there just be one God, Sri Krishna. Let there just be one mantra, which is holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna. And let there just be one duty, which is devotional service of Lord Sri Krishna. And yeah, and now I'll start. So I'll start with basically the topic is elevate beyond material desires to spiritual bliss. This is one of the most practical part of the Gita, where Arjuna asks a question and then Krishna gives a very elaborate, very step-by-step approach on how to go beyond our material desires to actually be spiritually situated. And I'll walk through that. But first we'll see one of the what is the practical question, and what is this inner enemy which is keeping us away from this spiritually situated or spiritual bliss, which is keeping us in material desires. And then we'll know this enemy, because if we want to combat an enemy, we have to know the enemy, the strength of the enemy, how this enemy is actually attacking us to defeat them. Then how to combat the enemy. and how to purposefully situate it. So once we defeat the enemy, we become purposeful, and from there the spiritual journey starts. So there is spiritually situated, then you are basically spiritually situated. Then you seek spiritual desire, then you seek more spiritual growth. So, and there is this thought bubble that I added in some slides. So identify this thought bubble as slides for discussion or reflection. So yeah, I'll just have them on the screen so you can start thinking, so we can make it very interactive in that way. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, we cannot see your animation on the screen. It just stops at the Gita Mahatmya sloka actually. After that,
I see.
no animation is seen. Sorry to interrupt, Prabhu.
No, it's fine. I think.
Which slide are you on? Are you on the first slide only, Gita?
Second slide. No, I'm on the second slide.
Yeah, we're not seeing the second slide.
Oh, I see. Let me see what happened. That I thought of that, but let me see. Yeah, let me try again. Let's see if this works. Is this now visible? Now moving?
Yes, Prabhu, we can see the Gita Mahat. Yes, now we can see.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I went through all this. Let there be just one scripture, one God, one mantra, one duty, and then how to elevate beyond material desires to spiritual bliss. And the topics that we'll be covering is one of the most practical part, which Arjuna asks one of the most practical questions. And then who is this enemy which is keeping us in material desires? How to know the enemy, how to combat the enemy, and then be purposeful in life. Be spiritually situated. And then this is the thought bubble, which I was mentioning, that I've added it in some slides, so we can have really interactive sessions. So humble request to please join me in discussions. Okay. All right, so let's dive into what was Arjuna's most practical question. So yes, Prabhuji Mata, you can recite now.
Arjuna Vachali.
अर्जुनोवाच अत केन प्रयुक्तोऽयं पापं चरति पूरुषः अनिश्चन्नपि वार्ष्णेय बलादिव नियोजितः.
Okay.
Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what one is impelled to sinful acts even unwillingly, as if engaged by force.
Yeah. So this is a question which Arjuna asks in the middle of all the philosophical arguments which Krishna was giving, be it about soul study, starting with that, and then karma yoga, and then how self-realized person live, what is sacrifice, how people follow leaders. Or in middle of all this, Arjuna asks the most practical and relevant question, which is very intrinsic to everyone and very relatable. This kind of draws people in as when they read Gita. This is first thing they're like, oh wow, there is an answer for this, and then they dive deep into Gita. So this is that question. So yeah, so we'll see why Arjuna even asked this question. What was the context which made Arjuna ask this question at the first place? So for that, I would like to have a thought bubble here. So think of a time when you disliked some part of your own work, or maybe a time when you liked something that other person was doing. So something maybe of your natural work, like this is my work, you know that, but you dislike certain part of it, and you like something which is not part of your work. So I would give my example that in my natural work, I'm like a software developer. I would like to code, but then there are certain parts where I would maybe not like to write a lot of docs or read a lot of documents or write a performance review for someone. So this particular part I'm not liking, but I would probably like something that my team lead is doing or a product manager is doing to hire a new software developer or to talk with clients and bring more people in. So within our natural work, we basically unlike certain parts of it, and then we like certain thing which is outside of it. So do you guys have any reflection, anything where you feel like, okay, there are certain parts where I don't like this, even at home also, there are certain parts, mostly we don't like sometimes cleaning at home, and probably would like something like, okay, I can, yeah, whatever. I mean, if anyone would like to share. Okay, I think I will go ahead.
So I can share something, Prabhu.
Yes, go ahead, please. Who's this?
Jagannath Gopal. Hare Krishna.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yes, please tell.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely there are many parts of my job, for example, that I would love if somebody else would do it, or it would be taken care of automatically. So maybe like I like to do my own work and just be happy with it, or but at the same time, when it comes to, let's say, explaining something to someone who is not understanding it, or dealing with a really difficult colleague, right? So
Yeah,
that is something I would, I think, okay, is this really part of my job? Is this really what I have to put up with?
yeah,
Something. Another example is at home also. Like, I'm a father, so it's all good. The cuteness, the sweetness is good, having a kid and everything. But then, yeah, it also gets tough at times. You lose your sleep. Then, you can't focus on work when you're working from home because your kid is coming and, trying to play with you. Of course, not the kid's fault. The kids need that. Uh, but from my perspective, yeah, I like everything to be like nice. But of course, that's not ideal.
yeah,
Since you asked, I'm just
yeah,
sharing.
yeah, makes sense. So yes, so if you see the pattern, it is mostly inherently something that we really like. We kind of tend to do more, and what we dislike, we want to push it away. And
Yes.
yeah, Phil Prabhu, please go ahead.
No, that's it. That's it. That's all I wanted to share. Oh, Phil Prabhu. Sorry. Go ahead, Phil Prabhu. Sorry.
Yeah, I remember my last job sometimes, but I would enjoy things that were more related to technical work, and other times maybe filling out spreadsheets, where we were trying to collect information to present. And so I certainly enjoyed technical work, coding, like as you mentioned, Ritesh, and other things which were necessary, which were revolved around a lot of Excel. I vehemently disliked.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I can totally relate, Prabhu. Yeah. So basically, there are certain natural duties to us, which is like our prescribed duties, which is swadharma. Even when we know, despite knowing that this is our duty, this is what is right for me to do at this time, we often find ourselves compelled to act against that because we follow our nature. And be it let's say we see something on Instagram or on social media and we kind of like it, and we suddenly want that product, or somewhere those desires just bubbles up and we get influenced by what others are doing, and instead of developing the liking for our natural inclination, so instead of taking back and seeing what we actually inherently want to go ahead and pursue, we often fall back in this trap where we seek other people's influence, and basically that kind of covers our judgment in some way. So we'll dive deep into this question, but yeah, let's reflect more on Arjuna's question here. So basically the essence of this question is, so this is the same verse, the essence of this question is, like what could be the root cause of this internal conflict, and we will dive into this because this is so inherent and this is everywhere in our life. It is in a subtle way, it is everywhere in our life, where we have developed some inherent likes, and we only want to elongate that liking and kind of suppress all the dislike things, and that kind of causes a rift in our mind in some way or the other. And that is why this is not just a philosophical question, but a deeply, deeply practical one. And on a high level, we can say that this is all Maya, but ultimately, what is that? Maya is a servant of Krishna to make sure only qualified enters the spiritual world. So basically, it's a trap, but we need to know deeper onto what is this Maya? What is this? How is this servant of Krishna actually acting in this world? So we get qualified to enter the spiritual world, to get out of this trap. So yeah, so it addresses a core issue of human psyche. It relates to our everyday struggle we face when our actions do not align with the intentions or moral values that we have. So yeah. So now that we have established what are we diving deep into, let's jump into what Krishna's answer is. So his answer is very elaborate. It's like a war plan. It's like enemy. There is an enemy, and there is a war plan to defeat this enemy and be spiritual. So 336 was self-destructive behavior, which is impelling us to do some sinful acts. Now we'll move to 37, where Krishna actually reveals the identity of the enemy. Who is this enemy? What is this root cause? So yeah, so let's dive deep into that. Yes, Mataji, go ahead, please.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kama Yesha Krodha Yesha Rajoguna Samudbhavaha Mahashano Mahapapma Vidyenam Iha Vairinam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "It is lust only, Arjuna, what is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world."
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah, so Krishna points here, lust. So I would like to actually open the floor right now just to understand what people understand, and basically how do they see this this enemy right now, having read the verse, so that yeah, basically we can make it interactive and actually dive deep into this and see who this enemy is, identify the enemy. Yeah, if anyone is willing, otherwise I can just speak. It's not a mandate anyway. Yes, Saurabh Prabhu.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like to me that it's the desires that we have, right? Somehow, like those translate into this.
Yeah. Okay. Desires. Yes, Akhil Prabhu.
I think lust is any precondition that we put on our bhakti. For example, if we say that, I'll only do bhakti when I'll get a job, I'll only focus on bhakti when I'll get a promotion, or when I will get so and so. I think any precondition that we put is, I think, lust.
Okay, I see. Preconditioning, which is basically keeping us away from what we actually want to do, and we often tend to push things behind for that purpose. Okay, we'll dive into that. Yes, yes, Lekha Mataji, can go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yeah, I was thinking it's some sort of slack eventually builds it, that there is this lack of sense of duty. Trying to look for like easy money or like easy recognition. So I think as that conditioning builds in, we try to move away from the sense of duty.
Yeah, okay, you mean failing to act according to our responsibility.
Yeah, most of our actions are dependent on what reaction we will get, versus having to do that duty just because it has to be done, irrespective of the results that action will give.
Okay. All right. Yeah, let's keep this thought. We'll see how that turns into what the actual thing is. Okay, Phil Prabhu. Yes.
I think maybe lust could be like any desire to please ourself that doesn't have any reference to God or some kind of religious principle. Or you could say like a selfish desire that's completely divorced from the Lord's desires.
Okay, yeah, very, very good answers. I think it's yeah, it's kind of in a way we see that it all can relate to what this answer is, but we'll dive into what exactly is the root cause and how is it building up, and whatever you all said actually kind of sums up this particular thing, which is it is a desire, but it is actually, so calm is actually an overpowering desire. All right, so here's a thought bubble that came up. So think of a time when you were blaming some external circumstances or other person for certain situation. Later, it turned out your own internal issue. So you were thinking of like, okay, this person has caused this, or this external, because of this, I'm not able to do this. And later it turned out something inside us which is actually causing that. So very much related to whatever you all were saying, like this is keeping me from doing what is needed. I'm thinking it is that, or it is that, but it is something internal. All right. So from the first line, we'll see it is key concepts here are calm and krodh. Kamesha, krodesha. Now, calm is any overpowering desire. And here, overpowering is actually very important because desires in themselves are not inherently negative. We tend to have desires, but when it kind of lacks any moderation or boundaries, then it becomes problematic. Then it becomes like a tendency to self-destruct. Now, for example, children may throw tantrums when they are not getting something. Let's say they ask for a certain maybe chocolate, and then we say, oh, you can just have one. So there's a boundary that we are keeping, and there is then that tantrum. So child throws that. It is very common and it is very understandable. But when an adult do that, we kind of exhibit similar behaviors, but in a very sophisticated way, so that other people don't note. It's not very gross. It's in a very subtle way. And then when these boundaries are actually put up, and there is a rage against these boundaries, then there is a krodh that comes in. That is like, how dare you stop me? Who are you to stop me from enjoying this? So having that sense of enjoyment, as Phil Prabhu was saying, like this sense of enjoyment, which is like selfish mood of enjoyment, like, okay, this is mine, this desire is mine, I want to just keep it. So that is intense desire, that is like keeping us. And where is it born from? So Krishna is saying, how is this born? This is born from the role of passion, Rajoguna. It is the Rajoguna. So we all have this role of, which we have is Rajoguna inside us, which is actually causing us to act in this way. All right. It is basically any intense desire and which causes restlessness or constant craving for sense enjoyment, anything like you can say as passion. Now, Mahashano, Mahapapma, like greatly devouring, greatly sinful. So this is basically devouring in a practical sense. Let's say we kind of indulge into something and we practically devour our dignity, our relationships, our humanity also in one sense. And so devouring is in a very practical sense, like we are actually depleting what we have, and sinful in a very moral sense, where our moral values are degraded. Now we don't have that sense of, okay, this is right, this is wrong. We lose that sense somehow. So it basically attacks in a way where where it's like a depletion to our resources as well as depletion to our values. And then inner enemy. So this is from where the thought bubble came from, that it is iha verinam. So this is the enemy. So the emphasis here is that even in the battlefield, standing in the battlefield, Krishna is saying to the Arjuna that this is the enemy. So he's not pointing to enemies who are outside in the battlefield. He's saying this is the enemy that you need to actually address. And it is actually easy to blame circumstances or other people, but when things are not going well, so in a way it is all inner, and then it also gives a very positive vibe in this answer, because when we understand that it is the inner enemy that is causing it, so it basically is that we need to do something internally. So it is empowering us in a way to improve something. So it's not something which is external, which is not in one way we can't do anything about it. It is internal, so we can do something about it. So in that way, it is very empowering. It is something that we can address, and Krishna will actually show us how to address. It can actually significantly change our perception and put us in a very and we will have a very positive impact when we actually encounter and address this enemy in this way. Yeah. All right. Any thoughts so far? I've been speaking a lot, so just opening the floor. Any thoughts? Any? Okay, Gaurakumar Prabhu says, a strong pull that takes me away from my goal. Yes, and the expectations. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Yes, Akhil Prabhu, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a question that so you're saying that lust is when you have like a all devouring desire, but in the case of Arjuna, he wanted to run away from the field. So he was not that he had a strong desire to achieve something, but he wanted to run away. So is just saying there's an all devouring desire is a complete definition, or is it something other than that?
All devouring, it's any overpowering desire. Let's say we actually think like, okay, let's say we ahead of time, we based on our physical situation or our mental situation, we think of something. Okay, today I will have to actually let's say I have diabetes and I don't want to eat sweet. So you basically make a plan. Okay, I don't want to eat more sweet today, and you kind of make that boundaries for yourself. And suddenly, when you see the kitchen and go eat, you see, oh, this is this, and I like this. So you kind of very, in a very nonchalant way, you kind of break that boundary. So that is basically where you are giving way to actually get over or disrespect your own moral boundaries. So this decreases the willpower as well, and we'll come to that. So it is something that we know is not right for me, yet we intend to get pulled by it in some way because of our inner conditioning, inner nature. Yes, Manan Prabhu.
Prabhu, I was wondering if you have some thoughts on Krodha. So Krishna says Kamesha, Krodha, Prabhupada says lust which later transforms into wrath. The verse itself doesn't quite say about the transformation. It just says Kamesha, Krodha, certainly lust and certainly anger. I was wondering if you have some idea why Krishna is talking about Krodha also here, and if the same things apply exactly to Krodha, or is there a distinction which is important to understand here?
Yeah, great question. So as I was saying, like, so basically desires need boundaries, and we often have a sense like boundary is restrictive, and we see boundary as like, who is this restricting us from actually having this? This is mine, having that enjoying mentality or something which kind of rages against these boundaries, which basically when desires are not met, like due to maybe social norm or maybe our own cultural norm, ethical constraint, our personal limits even, it can be the reaction to that turns into an anger or a rage against this limitation that often obstruct us from fulfilling our desires. So it is basically from kama Krodh arises, as we see in Gita also. Yeah, does that make sense, Prabhu? So,
Yeah, I'm wondering, so if suppose the desires were not constrained, would it still be an enemy?
desires are not. Do you have an example, Prabhu? Like desires are not
If I want
constrained.
to eat something and I have an ability to eat it and there is no constraint on this, I can go and eat that. Like whatever desire there is it the
Yeah.
constraint which creates the so I'm saying the constraint creates anger.
Yeah, so it is basically, that is why we have to know how our body and mind are conditioned, because it's not like one solution for everyone. That is why we need to be aware and monitor ourselves. Okay, where am I pushing? Where am I? Which is my tendency? Because every body, every mind is different, and we actually have to have that vigilant eye on which is my overpowering desire, which can actually lead me to overindulgence over the time. And it is different for everyone, and that is why we are ultimately here, because uh, because uh, because we do have desire. That is why we are here. In our last birth, we kind of had that kind of a desire that popped up, and then we are thrown again into the material world, and this is the cycle, right? So yeah, so constraint, we can evaluate, we can understand, we can judge. Okay, this is where I need to. So maybe we'll relapse as well. But over the time, by understanding this, by actually becoming aware of it, by actually seeing the pattern, we can actually curb it in some way. Or we'll come to that where Krishna will talk about how to regulate this kind of thing. So this is coming up. It's just the identity right now. We'll talk more about that. But yeah, if you have any thoughts, Manan Prabhu, right now.
Sounds good. Let's go on.
Okay. All right. The desires don't have a limit, and at some point it will be constrained, that will transform to wrath. If the desire is unconstrained, which is not possible in this world, then there will be no anger. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you want to speak something about this, Gaurakumar Prabhu? If the desires
Yeah, so I kind of agree with Manan Prabhu here that in this material world, you cannot go to any extent to satisfy all your desires. And if you could, hypothetically, which is not possible, then there would be no anger. Like as Manan Prabhu gave the example, that if I can eat 100 million gulab jamuns and just be satisfied with that, then there won't be any anger. But that is not possible in this world. It's impossible in this world.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is,
Okay.
yeah, that's
So
something.
Prabhuji, won't that be an overpowering desire, right? Then it would be a normal desire.
Yeah, I mean, you could have a desire, let's say today I want to eat 10 gulab jamuns, tomorrow 100 gulab jamuns, and the desire keeps on increasing. There's no
Yeah.
constraint. So then it becomes overpowering over a period of time.
Yeah.
And then if you keep satisfying that and if there's no constraint, then there won't be any anger. The reason
No, the very fact that when we, let's say, it keeps on increasing and we are bothered by it, that means it is overpowering, right?
Yes, exactly. It is overpowering.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and we do have like natural boundaries as well. Like we cannot push to our physical limit or our mental limit for something. Yeah. Yeah. All right. We'll move ahead from this, and we'll keep discussing, because this is all this is about. So yeah, thanks. Please keep bringing this kind of discussion. It kind of helps move the discussion and understand this topic in a very nice way. Okay, so now that we have established what is the identity, so basically now we have to see the power of the enemy. Like what is the degree of this? Like what is the power of this enemy that we need to understand to actually combat it? So let's say if we have seen any movie, or if we have played any game in the past, we must have seen, like we want to understand, like, okay, how many troops, even in Mahabharat, when Duryodhan was asked, like was coming to Krishna and Duryodhan and Arjuna, Duryodhan was actually very pleased by getting the Sena, because he wanted the power of the enemy, like physical power, which he could see there. So that kind of draw him to take that. So we often want to see what is the power of the enemy to actually combat it. So let's dive into that. All right, so we'll just have translation for this. If someone wants to read, please go ahead.
As fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust.
Yeah. Okay. So if you see this verse, this translation has a lot of like covered, fire is covered by smoke, mirror is covered by dust, embryo is covered by the womb, living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust. So ultimately, this overpowering desire that we have acts as barriers or coverings to something. Krishna has not revealed yet what it is, but it is basically covering us. And it also talks about the degrees of covering. So depth of indulgence or depth of craving determines the degree. So probably, let's say we have initial indulgence into something. So in this case, we are the understanding of right and wrong is there. We know that like this is wrong, but we still, due to maybe peer pressure, due to external circumstances, we kind of tend to indulge, and it begins to cloud our judgment and moral awareness. So this is the initial indulgence where we are understanding, like the understanding is there, but now this initial intelligence, if increases, it is when our craving for the desire now increases, for the object of desire becomes stronger in this case. The understanding of right and wrong is lost in this case. What is right, what is wrong, is this even right for me? That is not there, and which basically depletes our moral boundaries and moral, even our like something we have actually, our moral awareness basically. Now this leads to extreme consequences. The understanding that there is even a right and wrong is lost. That even if there is a right or wrong, the sense of like having a right and wrong is lost in this case, and this can lead to very heavy covering. And this basically, a fire is covered by smoke, you can relate to that as like smoke is very easily removable. Mirror is covered by dust, you need a cloth, you need a wet cloth, and you need to kind of yeah, basically scratch that surface to kind of clean it, mirror. And then embryo is covered by the womb, also here says it will take time, because embryo is covered by the womb takes time. So this is basically the depth that it can actually bind us into. And for example, if anybody has any example that they want to share, or let me actually share an example first. So if anybody wants to, they can as well. So let's say we kind of go for a walk, or go around a shop, and we see a thing, and we kind of we go into the shop and we buy something, and then there is a tendency to look other objects which we have not actually thought of. This is not something that we have thought of at our house, like, okay, we need this and we need to get this. It's something we were walking by and we just encountered, and we just saw that and we want to just buy it because maybe it is alluring a little bit. And once we buy things, and then in our home, we kind of bring that, and then suddenly we need furniture for that, because now we need to keep this somewhere. And suddenly when our furniture increases, then then we need bigger house, because now we don't have that much space. So initial indulgence leads to escalation, which leads to extreme consequences. Like now we need bigger home. So why is it extreme here in this case? Because the focus is external. So now we need to maintain that as well. And when the focus is external, the cleanliness, the orderliness is on the outside, not on the inside. And that kind of then binds us, keeps us in the trap. Does that make sense, Prabhuji? Or anyone have any other ideas, thoughts on this? Yes,
I have
my
a
brother.
question.
Yes.
And I know you want discussion, but feel free to skip this because I also want to cover everything. I don't want to get stuck in different places. But this verse, one thing that's confusing to me is in the previous verse, Krishna says, Kamesha Krodesha Rajoguna Samudbhava, that it is arising from the mode of passion.
Yeah.
And in this verse, he talks about these 3 degrees of coverings of lust, which to me seems like he's talking about passion, ignorance, and goodness. The different degrees of covering, different degrees to which one is, mode of ignorance is like the living in the womb. Passion is like mirror covered by dust, and goodness is like fire covered by smoke. Very similar verse in Bhagavatam, which also describes this. So, and but I'm a little confused. Why does Krishna say in the first verse? So this makes a lot of sense to me, 3.38. But in 3.37, why does Krishna say this is born out of passion or mode of passion? Because it seems within all modes there is lust. It's just different degrees of lust.
Yeah. So from what I understand, it's basically when we kind of have the tendency to enjoy, basically, and the passion is more like I want to do this. And when you actually get out there and tend to do things, it kind of we basically get in contact with things, and we have the tendency to overindulge. Let's say in this case, they were actually outside, and their eyes were restless. That's why they saw something. And when they saw something, that kind of triggered to buy that. So if the goodness would have been there, they would have stepped back and actually gone home and discussed, okay, should we buy this? Is this, or basically, or just took that object and come back. So I'm just giving off from the example because that is more relatable from what I said. And I could understand, like, while their eyes were restless, and then they were restless to buy more things. So this, you see, the initial indulgence, the escalation is due to restlessness, due to this need to enjoy. Otherwise, they won't go to the next level to escalation. It will just be, okay, initial indulgence, it was one time, okay, I forget about it. So it leads to next depth because of that, is what my understanding is. But yeah, anyone, please feel free to add or correct me, or yeah, anything. Yeah, Manan Prabhu, you have any thoughts? Yes.
I think what you're describing is this Dhyayata Vishyam Pumsa Sangarteshu Pachayate, where Krishna says that, first there is contemplation, and then there is attachment, which goes into lust, and which goes into anger and so forth, which leads to loss of memory and so on.
Yeah.
So I understand that. And we can look at this verse along those similar lines, that it's an escalation coming from initial contemplation to attachment and lust and anger.
Yeah.
But yeah, to me, this was is a little different in the sense of these different degrees of.
Yeah. So I have one more example on the next slide, which is basically going to different degree of covering. Like fire covered by smoke is like a light covering, and it can often encompass human species in general. Of course, there can be degrees of covering in this also, within human also, where human is acting animalistic. But in general, humans have light covering than what animals have. So mirror covered by dust can denote animals covering, because it's very difficult to overcome. And then plants and trees have basically very, very thick covering. And from
exactly.
Yeah, and from this three like species metaphor, we also derive that human life is a blessing, because this species has the least covering. So while we are in this life, while we have that inquisitiveness, where we have that this basically this this Guru Parampara, we basically use this and actually use the best basically take the best use of human life. And it also can describe the degree of indulgence, what it can lead to in our next life birth. If the degree of indulgence we do, next life birth will be accordingly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we established this is the power of the enemy, like how deep it can go in the covering. But what is it covering? So now the strategy, what is it covering actually? And what is the gravity of this enemy? How is it covering? Like, what is the characteristic of this enemy, which is so grave? And this is needed to actually understand the enemy and defeat them. That's why Krishna is actually taking us to understanding the enemy first, and then we'll see what how Krishna is suggesting to combat it. So thus the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. Okay. So strategy here is, so now Krishna revealed what is covered. Thus the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered. So wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered means his lack of like diminished self-awareness. Now they are not aware what they are doing, how is this affecting their actions, or are they acting wisely? Is there a consequence to this? And basically the self-destructive nature is actually causing it to obstruct. The knowledge is obstructed because of that. And now this is a strategy, and the gravity of the enemy is that it is eternal. Eternal, that new overpowering desire can keep arising as we move in this at different age, at different times in our life. And it can be lifetime as well, like life after life. So it's basically a constant threat that we need to keep eye on. And then it is insatiable. So it is compared as fire, like fire kind of grows stronger as we feed them. Similarly, this is insatiable. If we kind of indulge, we tend to indulge more. And then it burns like fire. So fire, basically like a fly who kind of gets into the fire thinking it or something else, just a light. Yeah. So now this was the strategy. Feel free to jump in anytime. I will keep moving because of the time here. And we still need to go for things. Hideouts of the enemy. So now when we have seen the power, the strategy, the identity, we want to know where this enemy is. Where this enemy is, so that we know where to attack, where to actually even defend, where to actually protect us and uncover the knowledge. So yeah, anyone wants to read? Please go ahead.
The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him.
Yes. So here, so this is really like we are getting the sense of where this is sitting. So let's say our body is a fortress. So let's say this is our body, and there are 3 lines of defenses. So senses, mind, and intelligence. So senses can be actually seeking some enjoyment. So senses, when we see something good to eat, our tongue responds by salivating, or when we want to kind of close our eyes and rest, we want to see something. When someone is saying something, we want to hear. So senses move towards such objects. What is this person speaking? What am I? Or even tongue is basically going towards the food, or eyes seeking the form. In that way, And then mind can be triggered by sensory inputs or through past memories while imagining something. And then intelligence can be basically justify our actions because it's like, okay, it's okay. It won't harm you. It's fine. Like that, it can actually curb us. And while why is this? Why this covers the real knowledge? Basically, we, in a sense, we perceive world through these faculties. Senses helps to perceive the world, to basically see the surrounding and observe and learn from that. Mind actually helps us remember things and make plans and all that. And then intelligence helps us take decision, justification. So this knowledge acquiring faculties, which is meant to actually protect us, are corrupted in some sense. And if we notice here, it is not mentioned soul is the sitting place. So soul is not said as the sitting place of lust. So if we say, so when we say like, oh, this is a fallen soul, or this is a great soul, this is a poor soul, it is actually not literal, because soul is always pure. It is only sense, mind, and intelligence that has lust, and that has been brought in that soul, which is not them. And knowing this keeps us in a very compassionate form towards others, where we know that this soul is pure. It's just that the covering that they have come with is grave sometimes, if we are not able to become compassionate about for someone. So it basically helps us become compassionate to others and see everyone in equal vision. Any reflections or any question now that we have laid out the enemy? Yeah.
I have a question, Prabhu.
Yes, please go ahead, Prabhu.
So Krishna says in what I think 7th chapter
Yes.
that this earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego are his bhinna prakriti, or separated energies.
Yeah, external.
And here
Yeah.
it is indriyani mano buddhir. So yes, I can understand lust is the area, rather, yeah, lust in the sense that desire to act against the will of God, quote unquote, is in the senses, the intelligence, and the mind. But uh, wouldn't ego also, shouldn't it be part of the list?
Yeah. So
because that is what actually.
yeah, I see what you're saying. From what I believe, like, please correct me, anyone here, if anyone has better answer, but from what I understand, ego is not it's more like a mentality. It's not like a thing, or like a mind is there, intelligence is there. It's subtle, it's there. Ego is just a characteristic, is what I understand. But yeah, anyone who would like to correct, because yeah, this is what my understanding is.
Got it, bro. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on, 37 to 40 is under identifying and understanding the enemy. Now 41 to 43 is when Krishna's suggestion for combating and defeating it comes. So right now we have laid down how the enemy is. We have seen all, and now we are strategizing. And now Krishna is basically saying, okay, now I know, like, now we know who the enemy is, the power of the enemy, the strategy of the enemy. Now let's fight it. So he says boundaries to protect us. So we'll see how that helps. All right. Yes. Anyone, please go ahead. Anyone would like to read?
Therefore,
Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization.
Yes. So here it says regulating the senses. So basically the senses are the primary gateways for our fortress. So if you see, if the fortress has to be infiltrated by enemies, where do they enter? They enter from the senses. So this is the primary defense mechanism that we have. Now through so from there external temptations enter and influence the mind and intelligence. So basically if we control that, if we regulate that, then we can actually reduce the chance of succumbing to lust and other desires a lot, because we are actually putting a gate on the outer from where the enemies can actually come in. And here I would like to say that boundaries it's more like a protective here. It's not restrictive, because we are trying to protect. So boundaries can often be understood as, okay, there is a restriction. Actually, it's more of a protection. When we want to have a knowledge, when we have some consciousness and we want to kind of retrieve that, and we know this is important, we want to protect this consciousness. And for that, we don't wait for any temptation to come and then try to resist it. We actually proactively do it. And there also our 4 regulative principles come in at first place, which Prabhupada set up at our Parampara setup. So this actually helps us at least not let more enemies come in. Now, when we have the enemies inside the fortress, we can probably work on that. So we are overpowering desire, and we are basically placing a boundary. So we are adding a fence to our, fortifying our city basically. And now for boundaries, I must say, like, it is often a bit hard in the initial stage to understand where do we need to put boundaries, because it itself can be self-deceiving. So we can use some guidance in that case, or have some tracker to keep them in check, and have an accountability partner, or best is have a guidance, have a spiritual guidance, have a guidance from person who can actually help you set personal boundaries, and someone who is trusted, someone who can ensure the boundaries are realistic and effective, so that our knowledge and realization, basically gyan and vigyan, is not destroyed. So basically knowledge is like distorting our perception, our understanding, and clouding our judgment, and that kind of destroys the knowledge so that we don't act wisely. And realization is when we know in the past it didn't have a good memory, but that realization just fades away in the moment of this overpowering desire. This is why we often repeat certain mistakes, and irrationally we just think like, okay, this time it will be different. So this is how it destroys the knowledge and realization. So first, and the emphasis here is, it is the very beginning. It's not the end, it's the beginning, it's the first step. So Krishna is pointing here in one sense is, there is more that is required. It's not just the boundaries. Yes. I see. Okay. I think there is a discussion going on. But yeah, feel free to jump in anytime if anyone has any reflections, comments, any suggestions, anything. Yeah. Or any add-ons. So from this, we can actually see, if we put boundaries in our life, we can actually get from there, we can actually start getting purposefully situated. So what practical application can we take? Yes, Mataji, please go ahead.
Yes, Prabhu, just wanted to add that Mahatma Prabhu has given a series of lectures on this about self-care, how it can heal the this uncontrollable senses also, like in terms of addiction,
Yeah.
abuse of our own body and things like that. How self-care, self-care is at a different level. At the highest level, self-care means to the highest form of self-care is doing our japa properly, because
Mhm.
by doing that we are actually taking care of ourselves, in both bodily and mind and soul wise. At the lowest form is all about these addictions and controlling the senses and stuff. That is also self-care. Once we understand the purpose of self-care, then the controlling the senses or managing the senses becomes much more like a easy process than more of a controlling or more what do you
Yeah.
like a very it's not like as though we have to suffer from it, like
Yeah.
by understanding that okay, we are doing something to take care of ourselves, then it becomes easier. So I mean, it's a very beautiful lecture series by Mahatma Prabhu on this. Actually, he talks. Actually, he runs. Yeah, there is also a workshop that's available in YouTube also about his self-care courses. If
I
anyone,
see. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think this is very vital point, and often boundaries are taken as very restrictive or control thing. But as you said, and Krishnan Prabhu is also saying, like, they need to be protected. So it's from a protective perspective. It's from a self-care perspective. Very, very valid and very good point. And chanting is the first self-care. And yeah. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Moving on, I think so how to get purposefully situated from this point. So this this first step can help us actually get purposefully situated. How like we can be purposeful in life. Uh, we can actually start like working on some improvement through this uh, first line of defense that Krishna has gave us on how to combat this enemy, first line of attack. So recognizing the overpowering desire. Now, how do we do that? So we need to keep a watchful eye. For that, we can actually have some kind of predefined boundaries, and it may not be in a very specific, but it can be in a principle level. Like, I'm a person who actually sleeps early or wakes up early. Now, this is a very principle. You can have the specifics according to your work, according to your lifestyle. But like recognizing some overpowering desire, which is actually there, you can actually start that by keeping some inherent principle in your life, which will help you see where you are actually pushing it away, that this principle doesn't apply to me. Actually, that is what is keeping us away in some sense from uh, from what is purposeful. So recognizing the overpowering desire then helps us become self-aware. Now we we have to acknowledge that there are desires, and it's not bad to have desires. It's just that when it is not addressed, when there are overpowering desire, everyone has it. It's just that when we can be compassionate about that, that okay, I've come with this mind, with this intelligence, with this body. All right, now that I have recognized it, I will understand its nature, I will understand its intensity, and actually protect my consciousness for my uh, growth, for my uh, realization, for my knowledge, whatever you are aspiring for in some sense. And now when you have that self-awareness, you can actually circle back and set more boundaries so that you can actually become more purposeful. And it is basically setting limits on how much you want to indulge. This is very principal to our being. Like we all have our biology has some boundaries. When we go out, there are boundaries to how we drive car. So boundaries are very principal to our being in general. Uh, there are boundaries everywhere in the way we are even made. There are so many boundaries. So principle of boundaries are fundamental. It's just the specific of boundaries can be can be worked around with your guide, with your spiritual guidance, or with yourself by self-analyzing and becoming aware of where do I need to put more work, which is the desire which is keeping me away from doing what I'm intending to do here. And then when you actually respect those boundaries, it strengthens your willpower. Because once we set the boundaries, we need to actually act on that. We need to be very, very, very watchful of those desires and respect the boundaries, because that develops the self-discipline, and practicing it regularly kind of somehow enforces positive behaviors to actually not see it as as something which is against our nature. It becomes very, very easy to do in time. So yeah, and then you can just repeat again and keep growing. So it's not that you have recognized one overpowering desire and you basically somehow got over it. That doesn't mean it won't come back, or new overpowering desire won't come back. So you need to keep, this is like a loop that you need to keep. This is like self-awareness. This is realization about how your body and mind work. This is about when you are knowing yourself. I know myself, how this, I have this tendency. I know how to act on that tendency. This is where this comes up. And this is just the first step. They are vital for protecting our knowledge and realization. And when we prevent self-deception by not setting boundaries which are not relevant, or not seeking help for those boundaries, then it is of no use in that sense as well. Okay. Any reflections or anything at this point, while I can move to the next set of instructions from, or yes, Phil, Prabhu.
Curious, if we follow this loop enough, is it possible to just strengthen our willpower to the point where we can overcome all of our lusty desires and kind of be situated above them and safe from lust in general?
I think in this loop, you can probably protect yourself from not having more. But once one that is already there, you need to actually starve them in some way. So this starving is not here. This is only to put a fence now. Right now, we are just putting boundaries, but we already have some. We already have some infiltrated enemy inside. Now, how to get rid of that? That actually we can figure out more. There will be more suggestions that Krishna gives. But overall, how I see it is not, this is not enough. We need, this alone is not enough. We need more, because either if we keep doing that, our lifetime would run out. This is like something that will keep popping, because we have so many desires, overpowering desires, acquired so many lifetimes. So our lifetime may go away. So there can be more that we can do. So it is like putting up the fence and then strengthening our inner core as well. And we will see that how, and that will come to, yeah, if anyone has anything here regarding that. So I see the question from Nupur Mataji. Does every overpowering desire comes under lust? So if a desire is overpowering, that means it is actually overpowering you, as in you are not in control of the desire. So I would say it would come under lust. Yes, it can be lust for power, for wealth, for recognition, for anything which where you are the center, where it is going beyond what you can handle. Yeah. Yes. Feel free to ask more, or anyone have any points?
I just want to mention one thing to Phil Prabhu's question.
Yes.
I mentioned this last week when we were discussing about Ambrish Maharaj. So the
Yes.
obsession, if we have an obsession towards purity, that will eventually fail, Prabhu. So what can happen is there are two bad things or two side effects that can happen. If you just become obsessed that I must overcome lust, I must overcome lust, I must overcome lust, then two things can happen. One is you can become very egoistic. You can become a very, like you can have a superiority complex that I am better than others. That is one. And that can lead to offenses. So that is the bad thing. And the second thing is it can lead to insecurity if you fail. And then you will start judging bhakti solely by our capacity to give up sense gratification. If I give up lust, then I'm a good devotee. So both insecurity and ego are the two side effects of being obsessed with being pure or having just this desire of overcoming lust. But instead of that, if instead of focusing on purity, if we focus on humility and understand and start loving God, then only then will you be able to completely overpower this desire. Does that help, Phil Prabhu?
Yeah, I really like that. I think that highlights a difference between us and some other spiritual practices that are dominated by fear and guilt, whereas ours is dominated by love and
So one of the traps of the mode of goodness, this is actually in the mode of goodness. In the mode of goodness, you just feel that you have to achieve this level of purity, and it's actually a trap. And in that trap, you can get stuck in that trap and it'll never take you to pure goodness. You can get trapped in that for lifetimes, actually. So we have to be very careful and guard against that trap. That's all. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Sorry, Ritesh Prabhu, please go ahead.
No, thank you,
I
brother.
had
This is a great point. Yes, please go ahead.
Ritesh Prabhu, I had a follow-up question. So it's actually related to Gaur Kumar Prabhu's answer, but let me phrase the question. So this is a nice framework where we are recognizing these quote unquote, I'll just call them weaknesses, and then you're guarding the boundaries through principles,
Mhm.
and then you're also protecting the gates through regulative principles and other things. Now, where is now not all of us will be able to consistently win each of these battles, and there is an amount, where is the room for compassion towards ourselves to recognize that each of these is just a battle. It's not the war. How do we progress there so that we don't get disheartened, and we keep progressing. Do you have I made myself
Yes, Prabhu. I hear you, and yeah, it's a very, very valid point, and thank you for bringing that up, because this is just the first step, and this is not like overkilling ourselves. The way I understand it, I can just add my point, and if anyone wants to jump after that. So I think it's more just like more of kind of keeping an eye on not indulging into something and get fallen, and from that level we can actually come into like next steps, where we will see how Krishna actually helps us understand how to situate spiritually. This is just to not fall more into that. It's like kind of just putting the fences so that we are protective enough. It's like a overpowering desire. It's not like something which is like grave or a very battle where we are just overkilling ourselves. It's also, it can be very, very step by step thing. It's not like, okay, we need to do this, we need to do this. It's very protective in one sense. Yeah, feel free to add anything, anyone, please. It's the okay, yeah. Prabhu is sharing some.
Can I add something? Just my 2 cents on this.
Yes, please go ahead.
So as Gaur Kumar Prabhu mentioned, right, what is the definition of the success of our spiritual practice, right? One thing here is it also matters who we associate, like what is the focus, the definition of success. spiritualists that associate with is, purity, then that forms a definition of success for us as well. And if we can't live up to that, then we feel guilty and
Yeah.
there is less room for compassion. But once we understand that, as Gorkumar Prabhu mentioned, spiritual life is it is not only about becoming pure. It is about becoming pure, definitely, but it is not only about becoming pure. It is about, accessing that grace after which, purity will follow.
Yes. Yes, we'll come to that. Yeah. In the subsequent verses, we are actually getting there. This is just the first step. This is just to make sure we are not basically straight up losing the battle. It's about that. Like, yeah. All right.
Yes. I didn't mean to margin with your subsequent point, but yeah, please go ahead. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'll just continue. We can discuss more on this so that we don't lose the essence, actually. The essence is after this, actually. All right. So inner hierarchy. We'll see how this inner hierarchy is, who is our, what is our, where does our power lies, where we can actually understand and defeat this enemy as well. So anyone, please go ahead. We don't have much time now, so I'll just, yes, anyone wants to go ahead with this?
So the working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence.
Yes. So here, the senses are greater than sense objects, as in senses are actively seeking, they run towards sense objects. Sense objects doesn't come to the senses. So it's basically active enough to seek pleasure in some sense. So it's basically superior to dull matter in that sense. Mind is greater than senses. So even if senses are inactive, mind can be actively imagining. So it can be triggered by, so our mind can be triggered by sense perception, but also if there is no sense perception, we can still be fantasizing based on our past memories. And this can be related to, let's say if someone is taken off from work and wants to spend time with family, but their mind is still at work. So in that sense, it doesn't need any gross matter to act. Even if body is resting, mind can go anywhere. And why this is important is basically Krishna is pointing out that boundary alone is not enough, but to defeat the enemy. Along with that, we need something else, and that strategy he will say next verse. This is just a prequel to understanding the hierarchy, to understand the master strategy that he will give in the last verse, because the problem is multi-level. He wants to understand how our mechanism is to actually defeat that enemy. So the solution is in that way elaborate. This is just a prequel to actual suggestion, which is the master plan that Krishna will give in the last verse. Now, how is intelligence greater than mind? Because intelligence is guided by reasoning and logic. Mind can be associated with, let's say, emotions, maybe desires, whereas and in that way mind can be agitated, like our emotions can go up and down, but intelligence can be like, no, wait, I need to focus on this. It has some sense of awareness where it can act responsibility even by reasoning through intelligence, and maybe also sometimes help us through our tough times in life, where we know that, okay, we have to take responsible figure at this point. Now, the highlight in this is that soul is greater than intelligence. So till now, we have only discussed about senses, mind, and intelligence. Now, he's saying like soul is even higher than the intelligence. And why is that? Because soul provides the consciousness and life force to actually work, to make intelligence, mind, and senses work. It is like everything is animated by the consciousness from the soul. And each level up in the hierarchy signifies a higher level of deeper connection to ourselves, to deeper connection to the soul. So intelligence has deeper connection than mind. Mind has deeper connection than soul. Senses with the soul. So we'll see how this helps us now. So now this is like the master stroke, how to actually win the battle. All right. Does anyone want to go ahead with this? Or wait, I can read it. Does knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So here Krishna is saying we all have intelligence. We use this intelligence to understand that we are a soul. Now, basically, he mentions spiritual intelligence. Spiritual intelligence is like using our intelligence to remind ourselves of our true nature, and then acting on that higher wisdom. And then how to actually, like the question someone can put is, like, even our intelligence is contaminated, then how does intelligence helps us to overcome something which it already has? So let's say this is our intelligence, and we have two sections in our mind, our intelligence, where there is an unhealthy part which is contaminated, which is actually keeping us trapped in some way. But there is a healthy part as well. We do have wisdom in our. That is why we are even acting in the world. So knowing that we have that wisdom, we can actually strengthen that part. We can actually fuel that part more, and then basically starve this unhealthy part so that it can kick out this. So basically, the more we are absorbed in studying scriptures or discussing this topic, it makes us disconnect from material plane, and it keeps us in that wisdom, and thus we starve the unhealthy part of intelligence and even the mind. And sometimes we can neglect the mind because every thought is not necessary if it is not keeping us healthy in that sense. Now we empower the healthy intelligence to overcome this. In that way, we get spiritually situated, and when we are spiritually situated, our experiences have far better happiness than what material temptations were giving us. So then we are not allured by that. So when we are spiritually situated, this material temptations doesn't come over us, and then we are in that way spiritually situated. Now I will actually go over like everything that we discussed in one in the next slide. But before that, if anyone has anything to share or anything, we can talk. Otherwise, I'll just in the interest of time, I will just present that.
Please go ahead, Prabhu.
Okay. All right. So now how to get spiritual bliss. So this part is actually not in this. So spiritual situated meaning, what is in the flow of Gita, it hasn't come on how to get spiritually situated. It is elaborated later, but we can briefly go over that so that we actually end it with the note where we actually get the essence of what we are into. So the essence of this is basically emphasizing on redirection our entire being through bhakti, through Krishna. So how do we do that? So right now we discussed that we all have this hierarchy, the sense object, senses, in mind, intelligence, and then there is soul, right? And we have this lust. Now this lust is situated in senses, mind, and intelligence. Now we can actually, and this is actually pulling us down. So this is actually the enemy which is pulling us down. Now how to lift ourselves up so that we can actually combat and win the enemy? So first of all, put the boundaries. So that is boundaries so that we don't let more troops come in. Now, we all know from Bhagavad Gita 15.15 that Krishna is seated in everyone's heart, and from him come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. And soul is actually a fragment part of Krishna. So now that we are the part of Krishna, we can actually use our entire being in service of Krishna to uplift ourselves. So we can use our intelligence to glorify Krishna, to come about new ways of engaging in philosophical contemplation, find ways to share and savor his attributes, and just glorify Krishna. And then mind we can use to remember Krishna, constant remembrance of Krishna, thinking about his pastimes, thinking about his qualities, his teachings. And senses we can use to perceive Krishna. In that way, we are actually pulling our entire being upwards rather than letting lust push us downwards. So in the sense of from senses like eyes, we can just behold Krishna's deity form. Ears, we can listen to Krishna's teachings. Tongue is when we taste prasadam, which is offered to Krishna. And also sense objects, we offer all of it, our entire being to Krishna. And when we do that, there is spiritual bliss. And we can actually reflect on that, on how do we do that. So sense objects for Krishna, we actually arrange our home as if it's a home of Krishna. Krishna is the center, and everything we are doing is for Krishna. So there's no room for this enemy to come. It's just that way situated. And if we have a car, we are driving to Katha, we are driving to temple, we are using our sense objects for Krishna. We are using our senses for Krishna, for hearing about Krishna, for chanting, for dancing, for prasadam, everything. Our mind for Krishna, our day-to-day plan we can make around Krishna. How can I complete my work in a very focused way so that when I go back home, I can go to temple or I chant my rounds so that my mind is not reeling over my work. So we can actually plan our day-to-day around Krishna. And intelligence, we can actually uplift our intelligence by studying scriptures, Krishna Katha, discussing about it. And then soul remains blissful, turning towards Krishna. This is, I think, everything I had. Hare Krishna. If anyone have anything, please feel free to share or reflect.
If I may, thank you, Ritesh Prabhu. It was very nice. Very practical, as you mentioned. When you initially mentioned that this is the most practical part of the Gita, I was actually very curious to know. Okay, that is nice. So let me see, and yeah, the kind of analysis that you've done and the amount of preparation that you've put in is really inspiring. And yeah, your study of Gita is very nice, Prabhuji, very inspiring. And you covered this topic very nicely, and you answered all the questions also very nicely. Yeah, very technical at the same time practical discussion that you had here. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Ritesh Prabhu. I just wanted to echo Jagannath Gopal Prabhu's words. But before I say further, I just want to let Phil Prabhu and Akhil Prabhu raised his hand at some point. I don't know if he has a comment or a reflection.
Yeah, I raised at one point. I think somebody asked that if it is very difficult to how can one get rid of our desires, be self-aware, be self-controlled, everything at the same time. And like you mentioned that if a person tries to be pure, there is a good chance that he will fall into the trap of egotism toward oneself. I from what I've heard and read from great devotees, it is also related to the point that somebody else asked, is every kind of overpowering desire bad? That was a question asked by someone else. So these questions are a little related, I think, because every kind of overpowering desire is not bad. It's not that lust is just an overpowering desire. Well, if somebody has an overpowering desire to serve Krishna, if somebody has an overpowering desire to preach for Krishna, that is not lust. So the point is not to bury your desires, overpowering desires, but the point is to dovetail the desires towards Krishna consciousness, and then everything is wholesome. So that thing I wanted to mention, that if we took all the onus upon ourselves that we have to do everything, we can't do that. We are basically practically nothing. But I think the focus should be more on dovetailing our negative tendencies toward Krishna, which makes it positive.
See,
So that I wanted
yeah.
to say at that time.
Yeah, thank you, Akhil Prabhu.
Thank
So
you.
once it becomes like an overpowering desire to serve Krishna, that moves from lust to love, Prabhu. So lust has three characteristics. It is selfish, it is short-sighted, and usually it is exploitative. These three are very core aspects of lust. And on the higher side, love has three characteristics. It is selfless, it is far-sighted, and it is very sensitive. So when you love somebody, you will see that it is very selfless. If you love Krishna genuinely, it is very selfless, and you'll think far-sighted. You'll think of the multi-life journey of a soul. You don't think of immediate, this lifetime, I have to become a pure devotee, I have to do this, I have to do. You'll think of the multi-life journey, and you will actually become very sensitive also. So real, genuine devotees that you are talking about, you will see these three characteristics. They're selfless, they're far-sighted, and they're sensitive. But if you see someone, even amongst devotees, who are selfish, short-sighted, or exploitative, then we know that they're controlled by lust. I hope that answers or just adds to your point. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Phil Prabhu, you want to add anything? I know it's probably very late for you before you leave. Okay. Anyone else? First of all, thank you, Ritesh Prabhu. This is a brilliant presentation and very well spoken. The slides were great. You captured and captivated our attention. Yeah, Phil Prabhu, please go ahead. Sorry, you're muted, Phil Prabhu.
That was me just giving just a point, Gorkamar Prabhu. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, thank you. So anyone else would like to share something on this presentation?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, this is Gautama Prabhu. Can I a couple of seconds?
Yes, Prabhu, please go ahead.
Yeah. So I loved the framework. I loved how you your block diagrams were very, very helpful, Prabhu. I think that the second to last slide is actually very nice. I think that's the only slide that we need to remember to take to observe ourselves on a constant basis, so that that can be a good guide path for us. So I love the analysis that you have done and the work that you put in. I had a follow-up question, and the follow-up question is about how is this applicable, for a grihastha, where the the work that you do, you may have to focus your work on your family or on your children, and you might get deviated from, you cannot always go to Krishna Katha, and you cannot always drive your car for Krishna. You're in turn driving your car for your children, and there, while you're doing that, how do you protect yourself from the boundaries as well? Because there is a very nice chance that you'll get sucked into caring for your family, and then protecting for your family, and then earning for your family, and then saving for your family. And while you do that, you might get distracted from the path of Krishna consciousness. So that was a question, related question, Prabhu. Thank you so much for the class.
Ritesh Prabhu, you want to address that?
Yeah, I think it was just more of a, from a Grahastha perspective, I added some analogies that I could think of. I'm not a Grahastha myself, so I just kept it whatever I could think of. But overall, the car for driving for Katha could be more related to people in Seattle. But we can always hear Katha on mobile wherever we are if we have find time. It's not like, of course, just to like overkill where it's not necessary to go ahead and drive in the city. Of course, I get that point, and it was not meant, it's not like this is the solution. It's more like an analogy, or how we can actually dovetail our anything we have for service of Krishna, or uh, getting to know Krishna in some sense, of course, in that sense. Yeah.
No, certainly, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Ritesh
Yes, it was very clear. Yeah.
We're almost out of time. So Vamshidhar Gopal Prabhu has a comment and then we can end. Vamshidhar Gopal.
Yeah, I'll be quick, Prabhu. Yeah. Thank you, Ritesh Prabhu. It was really amazing class. So well presented, well prepared. And Gaur Kupar Prabhu shared with us like how you are staying in the Brooklyn temple. So I think, and now I can see that why it's like that. Uh, Throughout your lecture, one thing I felt is like how strongly and deeply you are studying Prabhupada's books and how effectively, very logically you shared. And like I would like to echo Jagannath Gopal Prabhu what he said, like technical and very practical at the same time. So it was very soothing to hear your class, Prabhu. So happy for the opportunity to hear you. And thank you very much. Haribol.
Haribol. Thank you, Prabhu. And I just want to add, like, this is I want to give credit to Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. I'm hearing his lecture and kind of basically have notes from that and then prepare the class. So I'm just echoing whatever our gurus are saying in some sense. It's not something that I have come up with. So yeah, I may have gone here and there, forgiveness for that. But overall, I just echoed and just been an instrument, nothing else. Thank you. Thank you for your kind words.
Dear devotees, thank you so much, Ritesh Prabhu. And it's time to end now. So next week, I'll be talking about are we a warrior or a beggar? So these are two aspects that come in a devotee's life, and how sometimes we have to move from one to the other. A warrior has to become a beggar has to become a warrior. We'll see examples from Bhagavatam where this happens. We'll see examples from Chaitanya Charitamrita where this happens. So I'll try to cover everything within an hour. So if you can join, please do join next week. Thank you. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyo cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.